Hello and welcome back to Conversations with Marjan and Désirée on minding your mind and finding your peace.
Hello and welcome back.
Recently, I read a book written by Edith Eger. She's a clinical psychologist and an Auschwitz survivor. And in her book, I found a text I really loved. And it goes like this. Freedom and healing come from our ability to choose our response to whatever life brings us, and to make meaning and derive purpose from all that we experience. This is a lifetime practice, a choice we get to make again and again each day. It's not what happens to us that matters most, it's what we do with our experiences, how we look at them.
Really nice. I really love this. I really love this. It's what I think is so important to remember is that suffering, if you want to call it that, comes in many shapes and sizes, right? We often think that suffering or hurt or depression only come from, as they call in psychology, the big four. So disease, death, divorce, dismissal. But that's not the case. You can suffer from as much from little things as you can from big things. And in the end, if you would put it on a scale from 1 to 10, suffering is suffering. So, and it is something that you need to look at. And this became very clear to me. I'll tell you a personal experience that I had. This happened 15 years ago. And it was a situation, it's actually quite similar to what's happening today during COVID and the lockdowns. 15 years ago, I was working together with my husband. We were working from home. We had a big international client, and everything was online at that time also. So we were together 24/7, two small boys. And so we were working together, sleeping together, eating together, taking care of the kids together, doing the household together. And it was like I got to a certain point where I felt so boxed in and so much pressure, and really, there was no time to unwind, to get away from it, or to just reflect on something. And more than anything, I think the biggest thought for me there was, I have to keep the peace. I have to keep everything running smoothly. And this pressure of wanting to be a loving wife, a good mother, a good businesswoman, good friend, and it was just too much. And I thought I was holding all of that frustration inside me, right? I thought I was managing fine until I started to recognize that slowly, the frustration started to leak out in how I was talking to my husband, but also, and especially, taking frustration out on my kids, demanding things from them that were actually mine to solve and not for them to deal with.
This thought, I have to keep the peace, is actually one I hear often in coaching. It's very prominent, and that's sort of like the feminine side of coping with taking everything onto your shoulders. You could also look at the same situation with a more masculine side, because we have both in us and depends on what we're using. And then it would sound more like it's all on me, right? I have to protect and provide. The other one is more about the caring part, but this is something that weighs us down, and that especially because we feel we are responsible for the experience that everybody has and how they feel. So what's happening and how they feel, and that is outside of our control. So that's even heavy on us because we feel it, but we can't do anything about it. So if you feel that heaviness on your shoulder, it gets heavier and heavier, you need to think about, how can I unload myself? And the first step to recognize where the heaviness comes from is to identify what is the original thought that's causing that heaviness in each situation. So we usually have a rule book. We have certain rules that guide us and that tell us how we should behave and how we feel. If we take about yours, Marjan, I should keep the peace. Very often what I learned is that this is, a learned rule that either comes from a childhood home where fighting and arguing wasn't very welcomed. It was try to, keep the peace. Nobody should argue, nobody should fight. So you haven't learned how to do it and you don't want to try it. Or it could also be the opposite, that you grew up in a home where there was a lot of arguing, a lot of fighting, and you didn't like it, and you made that life decision as a child that you said, whenever I'm grown up, I will not have any fighting and arguing in my environment. I will keep the peace. So sometimes there's events like this or situations that you experience that drive your rule book. But it's now when it actually comes into play, and it's now in our adult age, we need to review it and make sure that we only use our rules and not are burdened with other rules that they don't belong to us anymore. Yeah. So the first thing is identify the rule. The second thing is you still have the heaviness maybe on your shoulders. So the best way to lighten your load a little bit is by sharing. So I call this the reality check. I talk to some people around me that I trust, and very often, as soon as I recognize they're struggling with similar things, that already makes me lighter, because I don't have the feeling I'm the only one who is not being able to carry it. I'm the only one who struggles with it. So that lights the load the first way. And then also by talking to others, you can ask them what they do, how they cope with it, and you can exchange experiences and strategies, which also lightens the load again. So talking is really helpful in that way. Did you share?
No, that's what I found out, right? Because as I couldn't, at a certain point, I couldn't press down the frustration anymore. And my husband started to notice. He noticed it before I did, I think. So yes, and that was necessary to ask for what I needed, and to voice that, and to really talk about those things. In the book you just mentioned, by the way, there's a beautiful expression that was very appropriate for that time. She writes, the opposite of depression is expression. And I really experienced that as soon as I started to talk. It was like letting the air out of a balloon. So that really helped. And the other thing that worked was that was more like a practical realization, because my thought was also I should keep the peace. I have to keep the peace. And this realization that when you're living together in one house with 4 people in close quarters, it's not even possible to always keep the peace, and that's okay. You know, it's like a thunderstorm on a summer's day. It comes and it goes, and as soon as it's gone, it clears the air and it's fine again. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a good turnaround with the peace. Did you find it when you did the work on it? I have to keep the peace.
I don't have to keep the peace.
That would be one, but you were trying to keep the peace for others, right?
That's true. Yes, that's true. Yeah, and not my own peace. That was a very important realization. If I can keep the peace for myself, and that was the sharing. You know, to do this unburdening. Then I was able to keep the peace, and then I was so peaceful that it didn't matter if there was arguments in the house or not. I was okay with that. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Another thing that I often see when I have these conversations is you can tell when people start to use words like always, never, everybody, nobody. You know, those all engulfing words that don't leave any other option open. Whenever you hear yourself using these words, it's like an alarm bell, because you have lost perspective. You know, you don't see there's other possibilities anymore. So I always like to listen to the words that people use, to point it out to them, because as soon as you don't think everybody is like this or nobody that ever helps me, you see that's not true. And all of a sudden, when you see there is people who help me, this heaviness breaks out, because you see there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is options that you have, and that also helps with it.
That is
so powerful.
That's what I found out, thank God, in the end. Yeah. Okay, so if you want to take another look at your relationship, maybe you want to experience more love, more understanding, less stress in your relationship, why not come and join us for our online workshop, From Fighting to Forgiving, you know, to just see what other awareness you can bring to your relationship. It's going to be held from the 24th of March until the 7th of April, 3 Wednesdays in a row from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. in the evening. And we would really love for you to be there. So why not just drop us a line or give us a quick call and come and join us.
Yes, love to see you there.
Love to see you there. Bye-bye.